The NFL draft starts tomorrow. Now, I don't expect to hear any TCU names in round one or on day one, but the Frogs are definitely getting some guys drafted. We'll talk about who the biggest prospects are, where are they ranked on the Beast Scouting Report by Dane Brugler from The Athletic. We'll discuss that next on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Steven Simcox, your host. You can find me on Twitter at SimcoxSteven. The show is at Locked On TCU. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel or your favorite podcast platform. NFL Draft starts tomorrow night. I'll be honest, I am pretty locked into the TCU guys, where they're going. As a whole, this might be, like big picture-wise, looking at the entire draft, this might be the most I've been disengaged from draft talk in a while. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's because I'm just not loving like what the Cowboys are doing right now, which is nothing in the offseason. But obviously, Caleb Williams is going number one. A lot of quarterbacks in the top 10 that could go. Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver from Ohio State, is going to go at some point in the top 10. Outstanding prospect. Seems like a game-changing player, but he's at a position where typically you're going to fall a little further down the draft. A ton of interesting names. As far as TCU goes, though, there are some players that are getting some looks in the second and third round, namely Jared Wylie, tight end, and then Brandon Coleman, who played guard and tackle. It seems like he'll project as an offensive tackle at the next level. He played a lot of guard this past season, and TCU honestly had to shuffle him around because of the issues along the offensive line. Other guys that will most likely hear their name called either through the process of the draft or as a free agent. Josh Newton will get some great looks. I think he's going to get picked at some point. Amani Bailey could be a 6th or 7th round pick or a priority free agent. Andrew Coker is a name to know. Miller Bradford, another guy that has done some good things with testing and should, be in a good position to at least get a look from some teams. But two guys that I really wanted to focus on today as far as scouting reports and where they might go, because I feel like we're going to hear them on Friday or Saturday, is Jared Wylie and Brandon Coleman. And Mark Perry also, he's another guy that I think could possibly hear his name called in the draft and will definitely get a look as a priority free agent if he's not drafted in those 7 rounds. But the two guys that I want to really focus on today, there's a ton of draft information out there. It's become its own industry, right? But one guy I really like is Dane Brugler from The Athletic. He puts together something called The Beast every year, and it's a in-depth breakdown of just about every prospect that could possibly get picked. He even gets into the weeds of guys who are going to be more free agents, maybe don't even make a camp. But he's very meticulous about giving good information, strengths, weaknesses, what scouts are saying. So he has Jared Wylie as the 4th-ranked tight end in this year's draft. The way he graded him was as a 3rd-round player, number 89 overall as a prospect. So some of the strengths that he has for Jared Wylie on the scouting report. Outstanding size, which we know that, right? Great red zone threat. He has the frame to comfortably carry 260 pounds. Outstanding at catching the ball, good catch radius, good ball skills, often rescuing throws behind him. He uses that large body to shield defenders from the catch and make the catch in traffic at times. Runs with good straight line speed, had an 81-yard catch and run touchdown against Baylor. That Baylor game, if you watch people that are breaking down tape, that Baylor game has kind of been his tour de force with the multiple touchdowns, the ability, he showed the ability to go down the field on that 81-yard touchdown. Also had that screen, essentially a screen where he caught it and took it to the house. Did a really nice job making some things happen after the catch on both those plays. Has quickness at the top of his routes. Can turn around and give quarterback a target. He led all FBS tight ends with 5 red zone touchdowns in 2023. He was a really good red zone threat, and also somebody who could score on a 2-point conversion. We saw that in the Big 12 championship game a few years ago. Can widen run games as a blocker, shows quality positioning in space, able to move his body and arrange his body in a way that's going to shield defenders from the running back and open up rushing lanes. Set the TCU record for single game receiving yards by a tight end in that game against Baylor, 178 yards, and had 3 multi-touchdown games in 2023. He was also named a team captain, and according to TCU coaches, leadership is very important to him. So all that's really positive. I've said since he got here, I think Jared is one of the most NFL-ready guys on the roster the past few years, just from that size and frame alone. I feel like at times he was underutilized in the passing game, but when they did get him involved, he did a really good job. As far as teams go, when we get into third and fourth round, I feel like you hear a lot of chatter from different people, and in most cases, it's like this particular scout, maybe he's a fan of the team or he covers a certain team. He's like, hey, I think this guy would make sense for team X. I saw at one time some Chiefs writers were really intrigued by him, and maybe could he be somebody that backed up Travis Kelce? That would be a great situation in some ways. I also wonder, though, if he ended up there, like you get picked where you get picked, and if you're involved with Pat Mahomes, and that's awesome. How many snaps is he going to get? Are they going to get him involved? But, I mean, Kansas City does show a tendency, whatever, wherever you are as a player, as a skill player, you can get involved in the passing game because they're going to spread the ball around and throw it to different people. As far as weaknesses that were mentioned for Jared Wylie, choppy steps as a route runner, inconsistent burst at the top of routes, will come out of his breaks with predictable movement, not great elusiveness, doesn't always create his own yardage without a clear runway, falls down a lot. I mean, they put it in more flowery language than that, but that was kind of what they said. And we saw him lose his balance, especially a lot this year. It seemed like at times there wouldn't be anybody there, and he would get tripped up by the turf monster from time to time. Played in all 27 games at TCU. They mentioned he battled shoulder injury and issues at Texas. I don't really think that's going to be a problem. I mean, he was really durable at his time at TCU, but it's there. He's 24 years old, and he's going to be 24 years old during his NFL rookie season. And they said unimpressive career production, which, hey, I mean, the tight end position in college, you don't have a lot of guys that are racking up 1,000-yard seasons, but it was really just those 2 years at TCU that he showed a lot in the passing game. When he was at Texas, they did not feature him much. That's why he transferred. I think Jared's in a good spot, though. I feel like he's going to be picked in the third or fourth round. As with everybody else, it depends on fit. It depends on where he ends up. But I feel like he's got potential to be a really good player at the next level at the tight end position in the NFL. Brandon Coleman, they listed him as a tackle here, and they've got him as the 9th-ranked tackle in this year's class. This is a really deep offensive line class in general. He did play both guard and tackle in college, as I said earlier. They've got him ranked as a 2nd to 3rd round prospect, number 66 overall. Strengths, I mean, he looks and plays like a big brawler of a player. Great size, outstanding length, efficient out of his stance, and moves light on his feet. It says he really had a field day on guard tackle counters, so pulling around, pulling around in the run game and getting up to the second level. Also climbing to the second level in some situations where he's asked to do that up to a linebacker. Was able to get to his spot, get on his block, use his body really well to wall off defenders and not allow them to make plays. Understands body control. They felt comfortable with him at both tackle and guard. He log snaps at every offensive line position except center. Posted exceptional numbers at the combine. Played through some nagging injuries in 2023 and showed a lot of toughness, according to the coaching staff. Weaknesses: he plays high sometimes, meaning he just stands, too far straight up. He's not down in a good position to have leverage all the time. And so sometimes people can push him, into the pocket because of high pad level and just not having a good leverage in pass protection. Technique was an issue at times. So they had issues recovering when somebody would get a step on him. That anchor foot and anchor leg showed some weaknesses in 2023. He got called for a few holding penalties, had some false starts. He's a reserved person by nature and says he's working on having an alpha type of attitude to impose his will. Again, they mentioned his age. He's going to be 24 during his rookie season. He'll turn 24 years old. Missed most of his first season at TCU after tearing a ligament in his wrist, but the last few years has been very durable and says he played through injuries this past season at TCU. So excited for both these guys. I think both Brandon Coleman and Jared Wylie are going to hear their names on day 2 or day 3. And, Brandon's a guy that I feel like his season could have and would have been much better if he could have consistently stayed in one spot for the majority of the year. Also, if he didn't have to deal with those injuries that were mentioned in that scouting report. But I'm excited for both players. I think again, it's about where you find yourself, where you fit in. But both Jared Wylie and Brandon Coleman, I think, have a really good chance to be exceptional players. There are more players mentioned, in this write up. Amani Bailey gets a write up as well. They've got Amani ranked as a 7th round player, or top, maybe a priority free agent. I talked about those safeties earlier, like Mark Perry, Miller Bradford, Josh Newton's another guy that I feel like is going to have his name called. A couple of receivers that were listed here, they didn't have scouting reports for them, but Warren Thompson, who spent his last season of eligibility at TCU, and then Jalen Robinson, who had a few good games at TCU, and I think similar to his stop at UCF and Ole Miss, it was just a matter of whether or not he was healthy. So I think those guys are players that could get a chance, and at that point, it's just about landing in a good space and having the opportunity to make plays. One thing I did want to mention about the current team before we go to break. So I've talked about this offseason, as the offseason's continued on, I've come around more to the idea of just leaving the running back room as is, staying pat. I think Cam Cook's a talented player. I believe, have some good change of pace backs with Trey Sanders, Trent Bowell, one of the freshmen, whether that's Nate Palmer or Jeremy Payne, kind of whoever emerges as someone who could be a reliable fit. But yesterday, an intriguing name hit the portal. Dylan Edwards from Colorado. You might remember that name because he had an absolute field day against TCU in the opening game of the season. Had 4 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 3 receiving the ball. And in that ball game, he had 5 catches for 135 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then rushing the ball, he had 6 attempts, 24 yards, and 1 touchdown. Overall, he had 321 rushing yards on the season, 300 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns total. So pretty much all of his production was in that one game. So maybe it's a little bit of a prisoner of the moment. But I said, hey, I don't think TCU necessarily needs a running back, but I would be interested in this running back. Now, I know Kansas State was really involved in the recruiting process out of high school, and so they appear to be the odds-on favorite to land him right now. If I'm TCU, I'd pick up the phone and reach out. I'd be like, hey, would you have any interest? Because he was an electric player in that ball game. The defense played poorly. There were definitely some missed tackles. Like I remember that screen play. I can't remember who it was now, but they basically overran on pursuit, missed the tackle, and then he took it to the house. And then I believe he had a touchdown like a 4th and 2 where he just caught it out of the backfield, turned the corner, hit the sideline, and was gone. He was outstanding in that ball game, and didn't go on to have an amazing season, but I just feel like he's got a ton of talent. Now, Dark Carter on Twitter, he said to me, he replied to me and said, listen, we definitely need a running back. So I mentioned, like, hey, who would you want to see fill that role? And he said the Miami of Ohio running back, who he was talking about was Rashad Amos, who had an outstanding season in the MAC last year, 210 carries for 1,075 yards and 13 touchdowns. Yeah, I would be interested in him too. I feel like it's just a matter of is it realistic? Like, he's going to command a lot of attention in the portal, probably a big NIL check. I don't know if TCU wants to wade in those waters at that spot. It just depends on, again, how comfortable they are right now. But I totally understand. It's an unproven position group right now. You don't have anybody who is coming back with really any sort of stats. Other than, I guess, Trey Sanders, who got opportunities in the short yardage game last season. That being said, I feel pretty good, but I would be intrigued by Dylan Edwards. I would pick up the phone and give him a call and see what he'd be interested in, because the ability that he showed catching the ball in the backfield last year, that's a game changer if you have somebody that can do that. So it's just a name to know. I don't have any insight as to what TCU's plans are, but it was a name that piqued my interest when I saw that he hit the portal yesterday, leaving Colorado after one season. When we come back, some more hoops news. The men landed a transfer yesterday from Wyoming. And did the TCU women get the deal closed with Haley Van Lith? It appears like there's some confusion there. We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. How about the Mavs coming back and winning last night? They're not coming back, but even in the series, I guess I should say, they led that game for the majority of it. You can bet on the NBA playoffs and more at FanDuel.com/lockedon, and new customers get $150 in bonus bets with just one $5 bet. All you got to do is place a $5 bet, and you get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. So make your first bet an automatic win by going to FanDuel.com/lockedon. or download the FanDuel app. NHL playoffs also in full swing. Major League Baseball happening right now. There's tons of NFL and college football over-unders, season predictions. All those things are available to you. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, one $5 bet, get you $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. FanDuel, official betting partner of the NBA and proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So TCU Men's Basketball, they're starting to pick up some momentum in the portal. Landed CJ Walker, but then he ended up leaving again. So CJ will not be coming to TCU via UCF. That's where he was last year. Frankie Collins, though, from Arizona State, he's committed. It appears he's good to go. Also got Noah Reynolds, a sharpshooter from Green Bay, who averaged 20 points a game last year. And one of Noah's former teammates, who he played with at Wyoming, committed to TCU yesterday. And that's Brendan Wenzel, who averaged 11 points a game for the Cowboys last year. Also 5 rebounds and 1 assist, shot 40% from the field. Kind of a swing man in the fact that he can play guard and forward. He stands at 6'7", so really good size for somebody who's playing on the perimeter. And he can shoot. I said yesterday, this team needs more shooters. I want more guys that can stretch the floor, that can make things happen. This past season, 37% from 3. Again, averaged 11 points a game. 2 years ago at Wyoming, averaged 8 points a game on 40% shooting from beyond the arc, 40% from the field last year overall, and an 80% free throw shooter. I know some of you, and by some of you I mean me, I've been very frustrated, really with my whole TCU fandom experience, that TCU's never had a good free throw shooting team. Well, at least at their previous stops, Wenzel and Noah Reynolds, good free throw shooters. So, hey, that's a plus. But I like this pickup a lot. Watching some highlights, last night and this morning, he's not just a spot-up shooter, even though he can do that. Like, he can catch and shoot. Wyoming would run him off screens, and he would come around and catch the ball and knock it down from beyond the arc. But also showed an ability to put the ball on the floor, both off kind of screen and roll action, or just individually clear it out, let him go one-on-one with a defender. Again, that frame at 6'7" kind of allows him to match up against smaller defenders, take them to the hoop, get shots that even if they're contested aren't going to bother him as much because he's got that length and that ability to finish up and over players. Nice little mid-range game, showed the ability to sort of contort his body and finish around the rim, find the angle he needs off the glass to get it done. So like this pickup a lot. It feels like it's coming together now. That's another guy in the backcourt, even though I feel like he's probably going to end up more like the small forward position. And you're surrounding players around Ernest Uday now as starters. And I think these young guys, Chase Posey and Isaiah Manning, the freshman, that's a good core. I'm not sure how many more players they're going to want to add, but another good addition in getting Wenzel and another guy who can shoot the ball, which for me is priority number one for the men's team this offseason. Some news that came down on the women's side. So I talked on Monday about Haley Van Lith committing to TCU. That was the reporting that everybody did. They also landed Maddie Shear from Kentucky and Taylor Bigby from USC. Taylor's more of a rotational player. At least she was for USC the last couple seasons. But Haley Van Lith and Shear were supposed to be, big-time starters along with Madison Connor and Sedona Prince. Shear is signed, so that's official. Now, Haley Van Lith did an interview with the Associated Press yesterday, and she said she is not committed to TCU, despite those rumors and reports. She explained that she's focused on making the USA Basketball 3-on-3 Olympic team this summer and has not made a decision about her future college. So she also took a visit to Mississippi State. The coach at Mississippi State, Sam Purcell, was an assistant at Louisville during Van Lith's time with the Tigers, or with the Cardinals, excuse me. So that makes sense if she ended up there. But hopefully, they still got a good transfer class even without Van Lith. But it makes a big difference if she's not going to make it to campus, because that guard play that you would have with Shear and with Connor and with Van Lith, the ability to shoot the ball, to get your own buckets off the bounce, paired with Sedona Prince and the way that she can make things happen in the post and in the mid-range game, would be a really lethal combination. So hopefully they can land the plane here once Haley decides that she's ready to focus more on the recruiting aspect of this. Right now, she says she's pretty laser focused on making the Olympic team, the 3-on-3 Olympic team, which, hey, that makes sense. I mean, that's a great opportunity to play for Team USA. So I understand it. And maybe she's just not ready to officially announce that she's going to TCU. But, man, that would really change the temperature on the offseason, even though I think Mark Campbell's a great coach. I think he's doing a great job. Van Lith was kind of the centerpiece of this portal journey so far. So hopefully they can get her on board once the dust kind of settles and she's in a better place to discuss her future in the college ranks this upcoming season. We'll wrap things up when we come back. TCU Baseball, victory over DBU yesterday. Big series against Kansas State this weekend. We'll talk about it here on Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. Ad read time. Are you a competitive person? Do you want something to do in the boring parts of the day where you're just like, okay, I'm going to grab my phone, I'm going to scroll through Twitter and get angry about whatever's there? No, don't do that. Download Monopoly Go. It's a great new game in the App Store or on Google Play. They've got classic Monopoly boards, but they've got all sorts of twists on it. 150 Monopoly boards in crazy locations that allow you to build up amazing cities that bring you big money. You can play with your friends. You can charge them rent on iconic properties, just like the classic Monopoly. Or you can heist their vaults and get the riches for yourself, and the leaderboards show you who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. It's not just your competitive side that will love it. You'll get to team up with friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. Get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or on Google Play. And that's Monopoly Go on the App Store or on Google Play. Feed your competitive side. And also the side of you that likes to hang out and with your friends and enjoy teamwork. I phrase that in a weird way, but you get my point. Monopoly Go. Download it today. If you need tickets, the best place to go is the Gametime app, especially if it's, a last-minute situation. You're not sure if you're going to be able to find a ticket for this event, whether it be a sporting event, a theater production, a concert. Download the Gametime app. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Again, that's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Gametime. It's the place to go if you need tickets on the secondary market. They give you a view of your seat. You'll see exactly what you're going to look at when you sit down. Also, they tell you what the fees are up front, so you don't have to worry about, am I paying way too much? Download the Gametime app. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Gametime app. Do that today. TCU Baseball, they got a 5-2 victory against DBU yesterday. Maybe they should play DBU all the time. DBU Patriots, really solid program, really good team. They're now 2-0 against them this year. Won both midweek games. And won in Dallas earlier this season and then in Fort Worth last night. One bright spot for TCU in what's been a tough year. Cademan Parker, he got the start, and he's coming off Tommy John surgery. He's made a lot of appearances this year. And I just feel like he's been very consistent. He's consistently gotten better. Last night, 2 innings, started the game, did walk one guy, but struck out 2. Didn't give up any hits, no runs. Was really clean in his appearance. Zach Morris had a good 2-inning appearance, 3 strikeouts. Did end up getting charged with 1 earned run. Hunter Hodges came in the 7th after a leadoff single and gave up 2-run bombs. So Zach got charged with 1 other runs, but he's been much better since moving in the bullpen. One thing to watch, Luis Rodriguez got the save last night. So I'm not sure if we're going to see a shuffle in the rotation. Now, he didn't pitch very long against Texas, and he had the weather delay. So maybe that was just Kirk basically getting him a bullpen session in a live setting. But I'm curious now on Saturday, because what they did on Sunday worked pretty well. They basically used Mason Bixby as an opener, brought in Cole Klecker after that, and then went to just kind of bullpen arm from there on out. So do you use Luis as an opener on Saturday? Do you maybe give Cole another shot in that role? I don't know. It's just something to watch. Bottom line, Frogs need to sweep K-State. They are 5 games under 500 in Big 12 play. They got 9 games left. I think 15-15 is where you need to land to make the NCAA tournament. And I also feel like going 7-2 down the stretch here, it's going to be tough. I don't necessarily expect it, but I think that's something they can do in their last 9 games. You got to sweep somebody at some point, though. Like, winning series is great, but you're not going to be able to make up enough ground if you just win all 3 series. You go 6-3, that's fine, but you still would end up 14-16 in Big 12 play on the season. Maybe you're on the bubble at that point. I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it plays out. They do have a good RPI, but sweeping K-State would go a long way. So we'll see if they can do that this week. Again, I would just say watch, those rotation announcements. Maybe they make some changes here, but a nice win against TBU yesterday. And hopefully, again, that's something that can set them on the right track, at least moving forward through the season. This is Locked On Horned Frogs. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. It's your team every day.